What the world needs now more than anything is another podcast. And that's exactly what we're doing. This is the Betereinders podcast, but we call it Jou Ma se Dialogue.
Sure.
And you might notice that the country at large might follow us in terms of a national dialogue. But we like to take the initiative with Jou Ma se Dialogue. And what we're going to do here over the course of this season is we're going to be black and white, talking about issues that affects us in this country, reconciliation, nation building. And as always, I have Skulk and Trevor with me. Not just Skulk and Trevor, Dr. Trevor and Tlola.
Oh, please, yeah.
And but you like Professor for short, and the Right Reverend Skulk van Heerden.
Van Heerden.
Yeah. So those are my not guests, but comrades,
Yeah.
fellow
Friends, yeah.
Okay.
Conscience.
Conscience, if you want. Yeah. Are you guys well?
I'm okay. I'm happy to be in Pretoria. I don't often come here. But,
Yeah, but you're safe,
I'm
Trev.
safe, yeah.
Yeah, this series, we call it Real Talk. And I think what I like about the three of us clowns is we talk a lot
Yeah.
in real life. We're real friends. We're in each other's houses. And it makes a difference than
True, yeah.
speaking abstractly in media or whatever versus talking real talk with real people
Yeah, and play
with
soccer.
real consequences.
And play soccer together, yeah.
And eat and alles. So I just want to say that's nice for me is we're not just three theologians or professors or something. Real people, real talk, and let's try and be as honest and frank as possible.
But I mean, but we are a pretty serious bunch of people together.
Yeah.
Because Scott, I'm not sure if you can help me with this, but our podcast, I don't want to brag, but our podcast is not supported, but we support King's Meat.
Yeah, we just want to thank Kingsmead Delhi, who's got nothing to do with this podcast, but we do support them.
Yeah, so their droewors is here. So a big shout out to our friends at King's Meat who we support as a podcast. All the other podcasts always talk about the people supporting them. We support businesses.
It starts at home.
Yeah, so we do it the other way
Wow,
around. That's
I like
why
it,
it's just simply not another podcast. So we want to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about victimhood. We're going to talk about race. We're going to talk about the farm murders, white genocide thing over the course of this
Discussion, yeah.
this season. All right. So that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. Maybe let's start with that. What do you mean by, in the context of, in the recent past in South Africa with Afrikaners and the victimhood? Before we talk about the victimhood Olympics.
Yeah. So that's sort of the big picture. We zoom out, and I think it's a good place to start to talk about victimhood because you guys have been bored by me for a while now because it's a pet hobby of mine to talk about this. And one of the phenomenons that I've been noticing for the last decade or so, I'm not sure if you guys watched X Factor or Idols or any of those shows. You did a little bit. At
Yeah.
I
least.
love those things, so don't
Yeah.
now trample on
I'm
it.
a Christian. I don't watch that.
I'm going to pee on
I'm
that
joking.
big time.
It's a
So,
joke. Yeah.
so oh yeah, because you don't
That's a
have
joke,
idols
yeah.
in your life.
He
Okay.
doesn't have TV yet.
So what used to happen is you came, if you could sing, it would help, and if you were attractive, that would help as well. And then people would judge you based on your looks and based on your talent, your voice or whatever. But for the last decade or so, just before you sing, they zoom out and they say, let's invite the next contestant onto the
Okay.
stage, and then they say,
Okay.
let's get to know Trevor
Yeah.
a little better. And then they take you back and the music becomes very sad and solemn and
Wow.
whatnot. And then there's always a sad story about Trevor who has always had this passion for singing, but when he lost his dog or
Yeah.
when something tragic happened in his life, that was a big turnaround for him. And
Basically,
and
they
then-
show your humanity. Yeah.
yeah. And then that's an interesting way of framing it, by the way, because then when you get back on stage, like just before that,
Yeah.
it says, Trevor says, well, every time I sing, I think of little Fluffy
Yeah.
back home, and I know he's watching over me. And then you sing. And it's interesting that you would say that shows their humanity,
Yeah.
because for people to relate to us in our modern context, you are only human in as much as you are a victim. You are only human
Wow.
in as much as you are a victim. So this has been a very strange phenomenon.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, there's been an increase in what people call hate crime hoaxes, and I do not think it's necessarily unrelated. So there are a couple of incidents from the States which is hilarious. The one being Carrie Dunn. She's an academic, and she goes and she speaks at this university, and then just before she gives the keynote lecture, she says, "Something happened to me before this morning when I got to my car.
Yeah.
My tires were slashed. Swastikas were painted all over her car,
Ish, yeah.
completely vandalized. She was called racist names, patriarchal slurs, misogynist stuff, etc., etc. And then when they did an investigation, CCTV footage found her slashing her own tires, vandalizing her own car.
Oh, no.
That's interesting. You've got Jesse Smollett, who's this other guy who was beaten up by MAGA people in Chicago, I think. He had a noose around his neck. He was jigged out, so he was made white. It was horrible. Joe Biden tweeted, Kamala Harris tweeted, all the celebrities tweeted solidarity with this guy. And then when they did the investigation,
they found out he did that himself.
He hired two black guys to pretend to be white. Which, I mean,
to be
acting,
a victim,
to be an actor is important, but you can only go so far. So, and then they had their little MAGA hat, and the investigation showed that he instigated this whole thing himself. Again, I think this is interesting from a sociological perspective, and I know this is boring. But
no, for me it's not boring.
But on the right as well, again in America, and I know you hate it when we just talk about America, and we'll get back to South Africa in a moment. But on the right, this is long ago when Barack Obama ran against John McCain in Obama's second term, there was a lady who was attacked and assaulted, and a Barack Obama supporter carved a B into her forehead. And when they did the investigation, they said, this is exactly what a bee would look like if you cut it into your own forehead. So she cut a bee into her own forehead just to show that she was attacked by a Barack Obama supporter. So the left and the right seem to be doing this. And I think the reason because of it, the reason for this is because there's a moral currency attached to victimhood. And I would go as far as saying that I think it started on the left to a large extent. And black people, women, the LGBT community, they really leaned into this. But as of late, I think the right has taken hold of this victimhood culture. And
victim of wokeness.
Exactly. So now everybody is a victim.
It's a victim. Is this what you mean by victimhood Olympics?
And the victimhood culture. So you've got these philosophers, Campbell and Manning, they wrote a book, The Rise of Victimhood Culture. And I think they make a very good case that we are now in the West at large, and I know you don't like this, but to a large extent, we are very much influenced by the West and Western ideas here in South Africa. We are living in a victimhood culture. So just think about it. The Trump supporters, they all think that they are being victimized by wokeness and political correctness. Women are being victimized by patriarchy. Men are being victimized by this hatred of masculinity. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this, but the manosphere is a very strange place at this moment.
You've got American words that we know nothing of.
Okay. So you've got these guys who are now protesting against this attack on men. So you've got these super buff gym jockeys also doing a podcast because that's what the world needs, more of that.
Sure.
And then they are just like, I go home, I have sex with my wife because I do it well. And I work and nobody works harder than me. And like it's just like masculinity and just everything is... arteries are popping and whatnot, and it's just asserting itself. And you're not going to come with your woke feminist nonsense. It's very on the edge, very steroidish. Anyways, they are a victim of feminism. The woman of everybody in this country is claiming to be a victim. Colored people are claiming that they weren't white enough in apartheid, they're not black enough now. White people are claiming victim. We are, and by the way, Baba, I think you guys think that you are good at playing the race card, but we've won.
We've perfected it.
We've perfected it now to such an extent that we've now received refugee status.
In America. But wouldn't you say, maybe to ask you, wouldn't you say there's a space for legitimate or authentic victimhood?
you're grabbing the thought out of my mind because I've got a bunch of friends in the UK, and I always tell them you don't have real problems. That's why your football supporters attack each other. So they start making up Arsenal versus Tottenham is their problem, like their fake problem, because they don't have real problems.
And the transfer window.
And yeah, so. And there's something of that when you talk with the examples from America. There's a fakeness to their victimhood games, where in South Africa, there's a deeper level, because if I think of black people in South Africa, we say stop playing the race card, stop playing the victim card. That's where it started in South Africa. Is white people were getting tired of black people always playing the victim of apartheid, and then we'd like, listen, stand up and join us, fix yourself. That's where it started. But that doesn't mean there were real tragedy and victimhood in South Africa, like a child being hungry in a shack. They're not playing the victimhood. They are a victim.
It's real,
So a hungry child is a real victim. And that's also now with this naughtiness of white victimhood that I'm very much against. But they tap in to a real victimhood, like if you are killed and murdered or raped, you are a real bloody victim. So and just for us that didn't grow up English, it's a big obstacle because you're so advanced studying philosophy and alles. You just talk. But when we critique victimhood, many Afrikaans people, and I'm guessing black people as well, they get lost and think, listen, no, I'm a real victim. I suffered under apartheid. I suffered about crime. Don't say I'm playing victim. I'm suffering. I'm a real victim. So in South Africa, I just want to say, there's a layer of very real victimhood, and it's almost like a sacred real suffering that no one should play games with. It's real suffering and real victimhood. What we're critiquing now on a high level is people using the real pain and playing games with it, like making me end up as a refugee in the United States, or when people manipulate the narrative of suffering, it gets hijacked and stolen, and then it becomes everything you're talking about. But I just want to pause there for a second on your question. There's real victims in society, and that's something different. No one's denying real pain. But then some people play games with that for their own personal interests. And maybe just standaardgraad, is the explanation needed to clarify that? Or because I've found many people that don't understand victimhood as a narrative creating strategy. They tap out. They've already tapped out. We've lost them.
Before you came here, I remember what you said about Afrikaners or white people say, stop, apartheid is 30 years ago, it's gone. So what are you? And then I'll say to them, but when the Jews, they make movies and books for something that happened that ended up in 1945, 40, 50 years later, you see movies and books, and then all before this whole thing with Iran or Gaza, we have been flooded with the books about their victimhood and This would be my response to the Afrikaners when they ask us or ask me as a black person.
We're still angry at Dingaan for Piet Retief and the British for the concentration camp. That's 200 years, never mind 30 years. So,
the interesting thing is that their response will be, okay, and then they'll stop. They'll say that it's like, okay. And for me, as a black person, it's amazing that, okay, they would agree. They would say they would not make an issue after I've mentioned the victimhood of the white people happen to be Jews. For me, it's fascinating because I thought they would say it's still wrong.
No, but then they have empathy because they're white.
Exactly. That's the issue of the victimhood. It's very sad because even those who are authentically victimized, they're now confused. Will they be believed? Like an average black woman, who are not only victims of the apartheid legacy or the apartheid itself, but even in the context of black people, the patriarchal society in a black community, let alone in the apartheid and all that, that most of them, they don't know how to say it, and then this is be trivialized or rubbish. But I think you wanted to say something about.
Well, the tragedy is that the real victims are forgotten in this space.
Wow.
Because remember that the people who claim the victimhood, in as much as they are black and in as much as they are women or in as much as they are farmers or whatever, it's very high level people playing the game. So the people on the floor, the real victims are actually just spectators in this Olympics, in this parade, in this political theater of victimhood. So it is not a dismissal of real victimhood. This is not blaming the victim, because that's also what you're going to hear. So you guys are just blaming. So everything is no. We are just saying this is the water we swim in. Okay? This is not to say that there aren't real victims. Of course there are real victims all over the world, in this country especially, because of violence or because of circumstances, etc., etc. But it becomes very difficult to take the claims of victimhood at face value because of the waters we swim in. So remember, this is big picture stuff. We are not zooming in on the we are talking about what are some, so these are sociologists looking at trends in society, and these are some of the trends that they are picking up.
I can't control myself. I just want to, but let's talk about Afrikaners. You guys with victimhood. Where did it start?
That's a good question.
I know when we read, because I read a little bit of Afrikaners history.
But not being humble because he did his PhD on us.
Yeah. But I just want to know the recent one. I mean, you guys are even less than 7%. Now you're claiming to be victims, you're running away to USA, now you're Afro-Americans, because, I mean, you Afrikaners who are in America, those will be the real Afro-Americans. So let's talk about your victimhood. When did it start? Give us the context.
So I think one of them is a thing called a moral panic. Now, I know this sounds technical, but I think it is important. Remember, it's big picture stuff. So we're trying to get a frame of what's going on in the world. So we grew up. I sort of just missed it. You definitely had it, where there was the swart gevaar, the black danger, but that wasn't it. There was also the rooi gevaar, the red, the communist danger.
Nou is al die pink gevaar.
And then the Roomse gevaar. Which was the Roman danger. So God help you if you were a black Catholic with socialist leanings, then you were
all three.
Like irredeemable.
It would be interesting to meet those people who come with those labels.
So it was this satanic panic. We were the only country in the world, as far as I know, that had a police force or a unit dedicated to Satanism.
Oh yes, I remember.
So you had the satanic panic, which was big. Now remember, a moral panic it's not unreal. The threat is not real, but it's just much bigger than what is perceived. And
you magnify it,
And the same with the black danger. So one of the most fascinating things that happened in my lifetime is I remember people saying, if Mandela is released from jail, then we're going to die. There's the Uhuru, it's going to be a white genocide. Then they said, he becomes president. It's going to be white genocide. If he's not president anymore, there's going to be white genocide.
He convinced us he won't kill us, but then we started saying, this one is different. So when he dies,
he's the only one standing between us and genocide. Then I remember that,
and it's happening because we guys told us with the media that it's happening.
And then I remember the SMSs that said, if he dies, the genocide comes. So he went from being the chief instigator, the chief villain, to the only thing standing between us and death. And I think it's a lens through which one sees reality. And if that is the lens through which you see reality, then you are constantly waiting for this big thing to happen. So that's sort of a moral danger.
Like a self-fulfilling prophecy,
to a certain extent. And I see something of this on both sides. So I would say, and you guys are welcome to disagree with me, because I think it's a safe space to be wrong. But I see in many cases how people are using whiteness, and I would use white monopoly capital and white supremacy and all of those words. It sometimes also is used as a sort of a placeholder of the swart gevaar of old. So this is a lens through which you see reality, and and you are just constantly seeing the levers of whiteness behind everything. Now, remember, a moral panic is not to say that there's nothing.
There's nothing, yeah.
It's not to say that
Yeah.
there's not something true about white, this is going to annoy you, but white normativity, sort of this assumption that white is neutral and natural or whatever.
Yeah.
It is true, but it is exaggerated. If you read...
Yeah, no, I just want to say, what the whole time you're talking, what I'm thinking is there's something real, but then when we blow it up and make it part of our permanent identity,
Yeah.
that becomes the primary way of viewing anything. Then it's, for me, starting to play these games. For example, I've been in so many chats with black people where no matter what I say, it's wrong just because I'm white.
Yeah.
So if I do this, I'm wrong. If I do that, I'm wrong. If I do nothing, I'm wrong. So, and it's just because I'm white.
Because they're
and then
white,
black people become so pathetic because they're always a victim of whiteness. And if I argue with you and I'm actually saying something
yeah,
smart,
yeah.
your comeback is just, oh, this normative white patriarchy, what. And it's not got nothing to do with the fact. So you, and I
hear
think
you,
that's
yeah.
what's happening is you make it your primary identity from something bad happened to me to I'm this perpetual victim. And once I sort out one problem, I'll just take another problem as an example. And there'll always be a new example to affirm that I'm the person actually suffering the most, because that's the competition. Is who's wie sy agterste speen. And what's interesting in our country, everyone seems to be losing. I've never met a group that says, yeah, we're winning.
Yeah.
Which is,
I
bizarre.
would like us somewhere to talk about Christianity, but we will come to that.
About
How do
Chris
you break-
Hani, what?
Christianity.
Oh, Christianity. I thought now again,
Maybe they
Chris
sound the
Hani
same.
again with
No,
the
no.
offenders. We saw
I wasn't involved, but I've told you this before. I have an alibi.
Yeah. How do we break this? How do we break down this deadlock?
How do we break down this deadlock of victimhood?
Yeah.
And how does Christianity maybe fit into that?
Maybe before we go to Christianity. Oh, that's fine. Let's see.
So Christianity is...
And then just to let you know, as black people, there's this stereotype, which is true, that the white people brought Christianity into Africa. Maybe it's in the southern or sub-Saharan, not in the north.
Yeah.
Because in the north, we know the Egypt and that part, Christianity went there before it went to Europe.
Yeah.
But in the southern part, it's real. So then you bring Christianity at the same time, you exploit, then you kill, then you genocide and all that, and then become victims.
So when it comes to victimhood culture, I would say Christianity is the main culprit.
Wow.
Our faith.
You need to unload that.
I thought it's the big solution. Now he's saying it's the big problem.
Let's
hear.
hear.
So if you were in the Greco-Roman world, the Greeks, the Romans, they would never have told you that if you can convince society that you are a victim, it means you are the winner of a particular debate, or that you've got esteem in society. If you were the victim, they would laugh at you. It would be a sign of weakness. Why on earth would you advertise that? Christianity comes in that world, and they put up a person on a cross, and they hold him up as the victor.
Wow.
And that sent shockwaves through.
It's like
the
ups and down.
world.
Yeah.
It was just completely upside down.
Yeah.
And the idea that a victim is valorized, the idea that suffering is somehow good and redeemable and even perhaps preferable, would have been completely nonsensical to the pagan mind. That's why there was this philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher. And he said this is the biggest...
Is this the guy who said God is dead?
Yeah. But he said we are still living on his fumes. So we must get rid of this Christian morality, the slave morality, where we think the weak is good, where we think that these compassion and he said we are still saturated in the rhetoric and the moral imagination of the Christian worldview. We need to get rid of that. We need to be strong, etc. So Christianity, I think, contributed to the world becoming victims. But here's the big difference. Christianity, whilst it affirms its blessed are the weak,
Yeah.
whilst it says that, at the
Yeah.
same time, it also says that,
And Paul would say, when I'm weak is when I'm strong.
all of that.
Yeah.
And Paul would also say that you are not excluded from sin.
Yeah.
You are also a mess. And he
Yeah.
would also say that the weak, the one day becomes the bad guy the next day. That's the story of Israel.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, throughout the Bible and,
Yeah.
and up and down the centuries, right?
Yeah.
So the Bible, so I would say that the current victimhood culture, and I know it gets a little bit technical here,
Yeah.
but the current victimhood culture is a bit of a secularized Christianity
Hmm.
that has been detached from other Christian principles, which is that we are all in sin. We
Yeah.
all fall short of the glory
Yeah.
of God. We all have this propensity to fool ourselves. But I want to just break. I know I didn't unpack that enough.
I want us to go to the Afrikaners and the victimhood, because we came with it. Now we brought Christianity. Not to I don't want you to lose the thought of Christian, but somewhere I want you to bring it, because I've always grew up that when you talk about an Afrikaner, in his identity somewhere he says, I'm a Christian. You know,
Yeah.
he will bring all these marks that identifies him, but somewhere he says,
Yeah.
I'm also a Christian.
Just to point out the
Yeah.
obvious quickly, and you're really annoying me with what you're saying because it might be true. So, but it irritates
Which
me,
part?
by the
Yeah.
way. No, that he says Christianity is to blame for victimhood, because surely Christ on the cross is the ultimate
Yeah.
person that is a victim, like
Yeah.
killed for doing nothing wrong.
Yeah.
But where I'm pushing back is
Is the-
he
the
never
Christianity.
claimed a victim identity. He says, I'm a conqueror because of my suffering.
Yeah.
So it's something very different, but you are right on the picture of the weak as the one to be lifted up.
Yeah.
And that came through where the strong isn't allowed just to bully. Bullying
Yeah.
is because of Christianity. It's not right to bully. You know, survival
yeah.
of the fittest.
Yeah, from an evolutionary perspective,
Survival
bullying
of the
is-
fittest.
Naturally,
Yeah.
it's the most normal thing in the world.
Survival of the
Yeah.
fittest is debunked by Christianity. But I
Yeah.
just want to point out, when you have questions about Christianity, I go and I think of the Jesus that I read about in the Bible.
Yeah.
Others will think about what became of Christianity
Yeah.
and white people coming to Africa
Yeah.
with this thing called Christianity,
That's why I want
which is
us
now
to-
different
yeah.
from
Yeah.
what I view as a Jesus freak.
Yeah.
And then when you ask Afrikaner, I want to almost be naughty and say, from back in the day, even to what I'm seeing today, is Afrikaners are more excited and identify subconsciously with Israel, the ultimate slaves, the
Wow.
victims again under Pharaoh that was liberated.
Though they call themselves
blah,
Christians.
blah, blah. No, they'll call that, but in their hearts,
Yeah.
Afrikaners have been thinking, and the
Yeah.
more right-wing you
Yeah.
are,
And we like
the
the Old
more
Testament.
you go into this. So we love the
Yeah.
Old Testament. We
Yeah.
love to think we are the Jews
Yeah.
here in Africa.
Yeah.
And that's how we live it out. And it becomes very far from the radical grace and humility and suffering of Jesus, where you become a slave and a bediende. We have bediendes. We don't become bediendes.
What is Bedinde?
Servants, maid.
Oh,
Domestic worker.
Yeah.
Sounds like Zulu. Bedinde.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so when you ask me questions about Christianity, I just immediately want to say, for me, there's Jesus.
Yeah.
Then there's this thing of formal Christianity, which morphed
Like it's a perversion.
mostly bad.
Perversions
But
of
then
Christianity.
to understand the Afrikaner, just know that when we see the Jews, we like show them.
Can I give it to you? Would you say Afrikaners generally are Christians? Or Skalk, you may answer that.
Well, I think in the
Because I mean, for me as a person who grew up under apartheid, victimized by the apartheid, by Afrikaner, I mean, it's a pity we are left with a minute or so. I wanted to bring this thing that sometimes we talk about Afrikaners and they are English people, but
They'll say they are. That we know. 90% will say they are.
well, I think we must dedicate
yeah,
the following episode
Yeah.
to try and figure out the Afrikaner victimhood narrative, and we
Yeah.
can talk a little bit about farm murders and stuff.
yeah, and the Christianity,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, but in terms of a big picture,
yeah,
I think I've got like very advice not just to Afrikaners, not just to whites, but to all South Africans.
yeah,
to try and combat this victimhood or the potential fake victimhood.
Yeah.
All right. Can I share that with you guys?
Yeah.
Well, even if I can't, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
So,
but because of our time, did you see? We are running short. We are time.
No! Stop interrupting me. We can do this. Come on.
Trevor, you used to be so good as Africans, not worried about time.
Yeah.
Now you, as an African, trying to time keep us
Yeah,
Europeans
come on.
here.
So the
Johan,
first thing.
just talk.
Yeah.
So the first thing, thank you, my African brother. So the first thing, it's just these Western people always imposing themselves.
No, since he got a doctor's degree,
Yeah.
he's
He's now very
got
white. Very white.
a wristwatch also.
Yeah. So the first thing I would just say is, let's all, black and white, realize, yes, they are victims. They are real victims, and we need to tell their stories.
Yeah.
But we swim in a world, we swim in water that is saturated with this victimhood
false,
narrative.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I would say the first thing that you need to do to make sure that your victimhood is legitimate is to make sure that you don't have mistaken victimhood. So let me give you a few
For example,
examples. I have heard hundreds of my friends say that they would have played Craven Week rugby if it wasn't for this black kid.
For quotas.
But at that same time, they would be playing for the third team in our hostel. And there are like 30 white kids who are better than them.
Yeah.
Like, I once saw a meme that says, I'm not sure who this is relevant to, but no, you would never have played professional rugby. So to me, that is mistaken victimhood.
Yeah.
And
The
for
white
me
guy says,
to
I'm
hear that,
unemployed.
it
I'm
makes me-
unemployed because of BEE.
Yeah.
But my white dad who has a company, he won't even employ me because I'm useless.
Yeah.
But when you ask me why am I employed, I'm like, no, as a white guy in South Africa, BEE. But my dad is not even giving me the basic job because I'm just useless.
Wow. Yeah.
So that doesn't mean that
that
they
would be an
aren't
example,
genuine victims of, let's say, BEE for a moment. But what we are saying is that there's something as mistaken victimhood. In addition to that, the other day I saw in school rugby, JP, the Joburg boys' school, we're playing against Grey College. And Grey College lost to JP for the first time in forever.
Yeah.
And then, but Grey College had quite a few black kids in their team. And I just saw one of the YouTube comments. It's because Grey is now doing transformation. Now they are losing to JP. JP is 100% black. So
is a great example.
Grey had like
That's a
4
good
black
example.
kids.
Yeah.
And it was their fault.
In their side.
Yeah.
And it's their fault that they lost against 15 black kids
Whoa,
on the other side. Yeah. So to me, that is like
A typical
obviously
example,
mistaken
Yeah.
victimhood.
Yeah.
But I would.
Losballe gesteel.
One of the other things that I'm not sure if you've heard in the last few weeks about Bavuma being a quota. It's been very silent.
After winning.
Since winning the Test Championship. We're talking about cricket, Baba. You must you
I'm
must
just a
be
little bit
more
lost,
South African.
Yeah.
But Bavuma was a token victim of our quotas. I heard it around so many Braaivleis fires. Now all of a sudden
He's a hero.
There's silence there. Not, I wouldn't go that far.
They're not going there, but at least they're not complaining about quotas.
Yeah.
But that is another instance of mistaken victimhood. And there's another player, I'm not going to mention his name. He's a black guy, and he claimed that he should have been the wicketkeeper for the Proteas, and there was this whole social justice and nation building review at South African cricket, which I'm very skeptical of. And he claimed the only reason why he wasn't in the team was because of because he's black, because of racism. The white person that they chose over him was one AB de Villiers.
The best player. It's like the Maradona of cricket.
Yeah.
And this, like I can give you 3 other wicket keepers that had better statistics than this guy.
Yeah.
So I understand that there are people who are genuine victims of racism, but in this case, I would say this gentleman is mistaken, and it's demonstrably.
Are you not saying his name because you can't pronounce it, or you're just
It's trying to be politically sensitive.
So there's something like mistaken victimhood. All right. So that's the first thing that I would tell people living in a victimhood culture. Just do a bit of an audit. Just make sure that you are not mistaken.
Yeah.
The second thing is just make sure that it's not imagined victimhood. Now, imagined victimhood is an interesting thing. It is a phenomenon that happens where people who didn't experience the incident themselves, but the next generation feel the pain of their parents more than their parents. So an Afrikaner example would be the Louis Boetas who fought in the Anglo-Boer War, the South African War, the Jan Smits who fought in that war. They were able to forgive the Brits and move on, where their kids, the next generation, were not willing to forgive. They held on to that anger much more ferociously than their parents.
I would say it's the same in the black community. That many of us, I didn't go underground. I didn't go to exile, but my generation, even those who come after us, they'll be so angry and bitter than the ones who went in the trenches.
Like Pretoria girls are more angry than Deep Kloof and Soweto.
That's a good example. But so there is something that is called.
Don't you think you must go dig deeper, a little bit deeper, and ask why?
Sure, and one can. So one of the reasons would be that the thing about imagined suffering is there's a hope. There is a sense of
identity,
not having agency. Not you feel this pain of these parents.
Yeah.
You live it on their behalf, and there's nothing that you can do with it. It's a little bit like when a family member, and I've seen this many times in my pastoral career, that somebody would go through something terrible, like let's say a hijacking. And then that person who it happened to would be willing to forgive, but the dad would not be willing to forgive. Like when he talks, or the cousin or whatever. When he thinks, if I get that guy, this is what I'll do with him. Where the person, the victim, the guy who experienced it, she is able to say, you know what, I'm going to give this to God. I'm going to forgive.
To let it go,
so there is something psychological about it, as well. So I think imagined victimhood is, I know we're not unpacking it and our time, as you have alluded to.
I just want to repeat, that's why I said real suffering is almost sacred.
Yeah.
Because you suffer, you're human, it's like real talk. You can forgive, you can conquer, you can win, you can move on.
Especially if you're a Christian.
But if it's not really happening to you and you're just playing the role, you're acting like it's you, then you get in this
twisted,
tornado of anger that you can never get out of because you're making your own storm.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a big contrast for me, real suffering, which can lead to victory and freedom. And then there's playing games about who's suffering the most.
I think that with the imagined victimhood, it's often real. Like that experience.
You feel it.
The experience is real.
No, you feel it.
But you must scrutinize it a little bit. I think that's what we are calling to now. Can I mention two more things before we land? The other way I think one can combat...
Don't say land, please.
Victimhood. Trevor's going to get triggered.
He's going to trigger Trevor.
Sorry. Before we give back the land, there's this... I think it's important for us in South Africa to not engage with caricatures.
Yeah.
So you told me a couple of weeks ago, the UJ choir were singing at your church. An Afrikaans Dutch Reformed Church.
The black choir.
The black choir sang at the
Afrikaans
Afrikaans Church.
Wow.
And one of your congregants came to you afterwards.
So did you call that caricature?
No, he's going to get there now.
Okay.
And he said, for the first time, I felt like black people don't hate me. After listening to these black voices singing, he comes to Skalk and says, it just didn't feel like these black people were hating me. And
First time I felt loved and accepted in my country.
Wow.
And he's 30.
And I just thought, who are the black people? I mean, this is you thought, but by hearing this story, I thought, who are the people that you are engaging with?
Yeah.
If that's the first time you engage with a black person and you come away, because the majority of my engagement with black people are like that.
When you grew up, even now.
Always.
Always.
Now, unless you are just engaging with TikTok videos of Andile or Julius or some of these angry black people, if that is what you are engaging with, or you just read
you have a lager mentality.
Your Netwerk 24, or I don't know what you are watching on Facebook. If that's what you're watching, then you're going to be surprised. I remember a guy once telling me he's high up in the solidarity thing, AfriForum vibes. He's actually a friend. And I was just saying, no, man, I think you've got it wrong. And he wasn't playing games. He wasn't trying to.
Yeah.
There were
he
no
was
cameras.
imagining.
But he just told me, he said, Johan, I hear what you're saying, and I want to believe you, but they just hate us. They really just hate us.
Yeah.
I just want to throw in, when he says caricature and where does victimhood start, the whole thing. In our country, it's always been there, but it exploded with our president who said, listen carefully. That Zuma, ne? No, I can't tell you all the bad stuff in our hearts.
Yeah.
It just exploded under Zuma because firstly we could say his name,
Yeah.
and then he just represented everything we were scared of and that we didn't like.
Yeah.
So then when you ask the typical South African about black people,
Yeah.
all they saw was
It
Zuma,
was Zuma, yeah.
all the heads,
Yeah.
and we were just seeing Zuma.
Yeah.
And then Zuma
What
went
about
away.
Malema? Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Then
Okami.
Zuma went away.
Yeah. Then Malema
It's a little
came.
bit like Lazarus. But anyway, he became Lazarus. And then young Juju was now taking his place. First we were happy because Juju got rid of Jacob.
Jacob, yeah.
But then, so we never kept
Yeah.
being grateful for that. But then Malema,
You were happy, but
especially
you didn't mention, yeah.
singing the song that he's singing, he's now the new Zuma. So he's the caricature. When you ask a white person like that person, what do you think about black people? They hate us. They don't have this real talk. They just see Ujuju on TV and they make an assumption when they see Trevor and Lola. They think you also want to do bully boon.
Yeah. And you know, for me, it's fascinating. I've heard that white people or Afrikaners who feel that we hate, let me put it that we hate them, right? Yeah. And I've heard it number of times, but I still struggle to make sense because it's always been the other way around, where you even make policies, where you put a government with all the policies and the structures, you even force to remove people. And then these people call themselves Christians, and then us we even now in the township people say,
but Trevor,
wait, let me finish. Even now in the township, we believe we grew up and knowing that Afrikaners, they hate us, you know. And then the funny thing is that we speak in the township the township language is full of Afrikaans, hater.
You see, hater. They say hater. I'm a hate. I hate.
You know.
Yeah, it's waar.
It's waar, yeah.
Yeah. But what you just described, Trevor, is also, I would also say that's a caricature. So
Yeah.
what I mean by that is
yeah.
you are engaging when you talk about you say we hate you, but you guys are the ones that hated us, and then the examples you give are apartheid legislation.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of black people, when they engage, when they think of white people, they think of apartheid. They think of a Verwoerd. They think of a Eugene de Kock. They think of all of those caricatures. They are also not engaging a Johan, a Skalk, a Denay, a Van Wyk.
Yeah, let me come back. Why would you? I mean, the Johan, the Skalwyk, the Besnode, there are few. We have many of those people who demonstratively, historically hated us. But you have a few Besnodiers and then, so I would say you are the guys, the other way around. You are the caricatures, in quotes.
Yeah.
Because the majority of, I mean, for example, I told you the other day, I walk into a petrol station, and I just, with a friend, pour the petrol, and then I went to the loo. When I walk out, and then a white guy comes to me, he says, fill up my car. Why? Because I'm black. And I said, no, I don't work here. And he was like shocked, you know.
Black and skinny.
So and skinny. Yeah, so say more about that, because I think it's the other way around. I mean, I don't mind if we differ. I mean, that's the part of the conversation.
Can I jump in, Joe? Because when we dismantle victimhood as a game or a strategy, it doesn't mean that facts doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That what we've been saying all along, there's facts that
There's
can be
legitimate,
objectively figured out. So maybe a way to look at it is, to Johan's point, when you talk about whites hating blacks, don't quote to us what happened under apartheid, because we're not there now. But, and this is where he might have a point.
Yeah.
You can say, Skalk, the way your Dutch Reformed Church looked in 1980 and the way it looks now, it tells me you don't love us. You love your language more than us, your culture, and a critique how my church at the moment looks and make you feel, because that's in my control. And maybe then we do hate you or distrust you or dislike you. That might then be a fact that he's got something there. But for us to be better to solve this problem of hatred, let's say we do hate you.
Yeah.
Don't use apartheid as the example. use what I'm doing now as the example, like
Well-
telling K jokes
Well,
and what Kader jokes.
yeah.
Maybe I get your thing about the past,
Yeah.
ne? But when I've got an eye on improving or healing
Yeah.
or even stopping my racism,
Yeah.
I also shut down when you use verwoord, what. And
Yeah.
you know I'm very sympathetic,
Yeah.
but it doesn't touch me in my heart.
Yeah.
Where
No, I
I
hear
do
that.
think
I hear that.
I agree with you. I think
Yeah.
I think it's actually the white people's
Yeah.
hatred of black people that makes us
Yeah.
flip it and
Yeah.
say they hate us.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah. It's
It's a
like a
trick.
projection. It's
Yeah.
like
Perhaps,
they
Yeah.
project.
but I would challenge you,
Yeah.
Joe,
Yeah.
that it's so deep, these things and the water that we swim
Yeah.
in, that it is important for us. I would say.
As a
Say
when you
again?
say us as Afrikaners or as
No,
Christians,
as South Africans, as
people, okay,
Christians,
yeah, good.
black and white, to just be careful that we do not engage with caricatures, because they are
I
black
agree.
racists.
Yes.
They are white racists.
Yes.
Skulk and I would probably argue there are a lot of white racists.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We would even say we've got serious issues in this country that
Yeah.
we need to address.
Yeah.
In spite of that, I would still say be careful of not engaging in caricatures
Yeah.
where when you are talking about us, when you're talking to me, you are actually still talking to verwoord, or you're actually still talking. Now, that doesn't mean that
Yeah,
the
yeah.
past doesn't have an effect on
Yeah,
the now.
yeah.
But I think the point is still okay,
Yeah.
or still solid,
Yeah.
that we engage in characters with the malemas and the verwoords
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
one hand.
yeah.
The last thing that I just want to
Yeah.
say.
Before you go there, what if maturity are caricatures? I mean, from for this conversation. For example, Johan, where were the Afrikaners at the TRC? They were like conspicuously or distinctly absent. This discussion that who is Donald Trump and the guys sparked early this year or a few years ago, there was a platform that was created, TRC. And I went there, I studied about them. One of them was in Soweto and other places. Every Friday, you could see the distinct absence of white people. And then I need to preface this by saying, for us, it's difficult, as I was telling you in the car, it's difficult to differentiate between Afrikaner and English or Portuguese. We just say white because it helps us. So the conspicuousness or the absence of the Afrikaners or white people at the TRC was like we don't want this. And then now that it suits you 30 years later, now we must all just, and then people are saying we are tired. And part of me, I've walked the journey of reconciliation. I believe in the journey, but part of me I also feel like, but why must we now? Why must we now jump? Yeah. So I'm just pushing you, push back and say, what if most of Afrikaners, most of black people are caricatures? Maybe we love to say we are not caricatures. We make a majority of the people or a few number of people are not caricatures. Majority of us are.
Maybe take away caricature as a word and say there can be generalizations because there are patterns.
Yeah.
So you're saying we weren't at the TRC.
Yeah.
Last week I was in Soweto, 4,000 people in a church praying for unity in the country.
Wow.
20 white.
Yeah.
Out of 4,000.
Yeah.
And they still sing 3 Afrikaans songs for us 20. And the one black guy said, I want to forgive the whites, but you're not even here for me to tell you you're forgiven. And so what you're feeling about TRC as a pattern of Afrikaners choosing not to show up, last week I experienced that. So then we can ask, is this pattern a general problem? The pattern of fear or that. So I think that's something different. And to be naughty, Johan, if you think about Johan can deal with any sin except littering. So if you think a black person throwing his rubbish and making a Loftus dirty after a soccer game, you must say, is that a caricature or is that just every weekend you can see what it looks like after the Bulls and after Sundowns play?
Before
so there could be a generalization that's actually true.
Before
when you meet Trevor, maybe it's not that.
But before he responds, I when you talk about littering as a black person, I'm ashamed and embarrassed, and I want to own it up and say, yes, we are. Whatever reasons are, it is happening. And then
You're taking the caricature.
yeah, I'm taking the caricature to say yes. But maybe you stop there, and then
Yeah,
we can.
so I think you are confusing engaging in a caricature and not engaging with real people versus genuine issues that different tribes still struggle with. So for me, there is a difference. But the last thing that I want to say, because I understand that we're going to have to unpack this for in another episode.
For the audience, yeah.
But I think the other question is, can your victimhood handle contradiction? So what I mean by that, and I'll say this sort of in closing, is yes. Let's talk from a white victimhood perspective for a moment. Yes, there are lots of BEE legislation and lots of abuse within that program, and simultaneously, white people, especially in the Afrikaner, are significantly richer than they were pre-94 for numerous reasons. Can you hold those two things in contradiction? So on the one hand, I agree that there are many. Instead, we've created, BEE has created not a lot of black professionals, but a lot of professional blacks who are tendering.
Sorry for laughing, it's funny.
And it's problematic. But at the same time, economically, we are okay. And on top of that, if you just look at the unemployment numbers, black unemployment is close to 40%, white unemployment is 7%. The average white household earns 4 times more than the average black household. So can you hold those things in tension? Then your victimhood is not one-dimensional.
Yeah.
I love that.
And on top of that, I would say that farm murders is tragic. You've got politicians saying insensitive things. You've got songs that I would even say are insensitive or maybe doesn't have a place in the new South Africa. At the same time, a white person is still significantly safer in South Africa than a black person. Can you hold those things in tension? And then also you've got caricatures, black people saying things, politicians saying insensitive things. On the other hand, there is just so much goodwill on the ground from a lot of black people. Can you hold those things in tension? And from the black perspective, I think there are also things that you need to hold in tension. So I think if we want to be responsible victims, these are some things that we can do. Imagined victimhood, we need to be careful. Mistaken victimhood, we must make sure that we really are the victims, because a lot of people think they are victims and they're not.
Imagined.
And then, can your victimhood handle contradiction? And that's that.
Yeah, I love it. If real, we almost started fighting, but if real talk could be holding different things together, I'd be very happy to do a lot of these real talks.
The assumption is
which
that
we don't just agree, but we're holding different things, and we're refusing to just pick one thing.
The assumption is that it needs a one who's mature enough to be able to hold things in tension. It's not anybody who can hold.
And show up again for the next chat.
Well, I'm not sure whether I want to come back. Thank you.
Are you going to close us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm actually leaving us with is Betereinders real talk. It's real people talking about real matters.
True. Yeah.
And we learn to listen, to talk. We learn how to live in this tension. And we're teasing about this Yomasa dialogue. I wonder the national dialogue. Are people going to listen to each other? Are they going to be able to hold difficult things in the same space? So maybe your master dialogue can be somehow fresh here among friends. And that's maybe where our country should be aiming, is small little dialogues, small pockets of real talk that affects our lives, that doesn't end up behind the microphone.
Wow.
Maybe last thing I just want to say is just again, remember that this podcast supports King's Meat.
We do support King's Meat and
so just a big shout out
general.
to them. Just a big shout out in general. I think, So
let me try it.
Big thanks.
Some.
So there's...
oh, look at this.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Inyama.
All right.
So you're making me an Afrikaner.
Till next time.